Ever want a quick, fun project that's also kind of cool? Well, everyone needs a tote bag or a purse or something. And so today on Sewing Tech Talk, we're going to make a neat embroidered bag. You can use some scraps for it, but you know what's really cool about it? It's the Swiss cheese bag. Why? Because it has a really fun pocket on the front. Look at that. It looks like Swiss cheese to me. So let's make this cool bag. We're using the Baby Lock Vesta today. I'm Cathy. This is Sewing Tech Talk. Join me. Let's play. So totes are super useful, and oh my gosh, well, you can call them a tote, a purse, whatever you call it. So I thought this would be a fun project to do. We're going to be using the Baby Lock Vesta today, and we're both going to be sewing and using some of the embroidery features, because we can take this tote and take it up a notch. So I call it the Swiss Cheese Tote because what we're going to do is we're going to make a pretty unique pocket on the front using embroidery and the frames featured in the machine. And I think it's kind of fun. And you can use that feature for all kinds of different embellishments on different totes. But let's get to the main part of what we're going to do, and let me talk about the supplies. Now there's a handout for you that it lists the instructions for making the tote, and it makes a list of supplies. But let's just review those and see what we need. First, I made my tote using 2.5-inch strips. You can make the front of the tote out of anything that you want. But I thought it was kind of fun to do different piecing. So here's the part of my tote. It's all ready for embroidery. But you can see I did all kinds of different 2.5-inch strips, and what I did is I sewed them onto a background of stabilizer, because I'm going to be embroidering on this, and we might as well have the stabilizer do 2-for-1 duty. So what I did was kind of a flip and sew technique, and we'll get to that in just a second. But this is a Floriani power mesh. Now this one is a non-fusible. I prefer the fusible, but I had a 20-inch width. Comes on a roll. I had a 20-inch width, and you'll need a yard of that. You'll need enough strips to cover your piece of stabilizer, and you can put them on in any order. I just did this pattern. It could be crazy quilted, anything that you want, designer's choice. The other thing that you're going to need is for the inside of the tote, you're going to need a piece of fabric for the lining, and here is the piece. This is what the no-show mesh looks like. Here is the lining fabric that I'm going to use. And for that outside pocket, you're going to need a couple pieces of fabric. Now I'm going to make my pocket pretty large. And so these two pieces are 16 inches square. Now these are the same fabric, but they don't have to be. One fabric is literally going to be on the inside back of the pocket, and you're not going to see it. So you can use a scrap fabric for that, but one fabric will definitely show. So keep that in mind. This is pretty colorful. It could be something like this, and we'll explore another option when we get there. I also put in the inside of my bag, I like it to be stable. So what I use is a product called Peltex, and it's a pretty stiff product. From the piece, I cut 2 1-inch pieces off the side. Talks about that in your instructions. I'm going to use these for the handle, and this is double-sided fusible. It's really going to give my bag structure. Now there's other things out there that you can use. You can use a foam product, and you could use multiple layers of a heavy cutaway stabilizer, but I like this product because when you see the handles, you're really going to like the technique. So that's that. Speaking of handles, now I make handles out of fabric. I'm going to make them out of 2.5-inch strips. I really think you're going to like this fun technique because there's no turning the handle, and it turns out super strong and neat. But if you don't want to do that, you could definitely purchase some handles, sew them on. It's all good. You could use a like a webbing kind of product. Pretty inexpensive and easy to get. You don't have to make it. But I like my handles to be, I like to use the fabric. But I also like my handles to be removable. I find that I'm really hard on handles for purses and bags and totes, so I like to make them so that I can replace them easily. So when I'm doing that, I need to attach them to the bag using some sort of a ring. So here's the ring that you can get. You can buy this at pretty much any quilt shop, sewing store, online, I'm sure, and they come in all kinds of variety. Now, I also found something kind of fun. If you go to your local hardware store, you can get what's called a quick link, and that's for chain or something like that. And it's got the advantage of you can unscrew it and then you could replace the handle on that. So if this was here, this link would come off and I could put a new handle on it really easy. So that's pretty cool. There's also, these are kind of different hardwares that you can get for making like a keychain, but they clamp on to the webbing or even to the handle that you make. So that's another option too. This would go on a loop to the top of the tote bag, and that would be kind of fun. So all kinds of options for that. So now let's get to how are we going to cover the top, this fabric, this no-show mesh on the top. Well, what I use is I use a flip and sew technique. So here is, I have a little sample kind of started to show you. And what I do is I take my power mesh, and you can draw a line on there if you need it to be straight. You can, it's never going to be seen, so that's totally okay. And so what I do is I lay the fabric on top of that. Now I'm going to sew the seam right here, and then this is going to flip over. And I just continue to do that on the larger piece till the entire piece is covered. If you need, like I said, if you need lines to keep sewing straight, that's okay. Seam allowance, totally up to you. If you want it to be bigger or smaller, that's okay. And these pieces can be just about anything. Do they have to be strips? Absolutely not. Cover it with scraps. Designer's choice. This bag is an excellent opportunity to let your creative juices flow. So let's just do one flip and sew so I can show you. Now, if this was a fusible, what I would be using is I would be using the fusible part on the top. Why do I prefer that? Because after I sew the seam and I press it open, I could be pressing it down to that fusible surface, and that holds it really, really nice. So I've set my machine up for a straight stitch, and I'm just going to use the side of the foot, because the stitch on the Vesta is number 129. It's made to be a piecing stitch where the right side of the J foot gives you a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm using that, but you can use any straight stitch seam that gives you what you want. This is just super convenient for me. So I'm going to put that on there, lower the presser foot. I'm going to be using just regular thread for sewing this. This is a great way, this is a great time to use up those little spools, those little remnants that you have, because no one's going to see this. Then we line it on up, and we're just going to sew right along that edge. So there it is. Now all I would do is I would open it on up, and then I would just continue that process to cover this entire piece of no-show mesh. Like I said, the fusible's great because I could go to the iron, I could press this down, and when I do all my pieces, they're all pressed, they're all nice, and they're good to go. Now I really want to show you that fun technique I have for doing the handles, because I think it's kind of fun. I've made a ton of purses, and a lot of them they have you doing a handle, and you're doing all kinds of stuff to turn that tube inside out to make a handle. I wanted a quicker method. So I do use that Pellon product. I find it's really nice for handles, and this is the Pellon Peltex 72F. That means it's fusible on both sides, and we're going to use both sides to fuse. So I have the visual in your handout, but let me just guide you through this process. Decide how long you want your handle to be. Then you're going to cut a piece that's 1 inch wide of the Peltex and just about 2 inches shorter than you want that length to be. Why do we do that? Well, you'll notice there's fabric coming on the end here that I don't have the stabilizer on. Now we're going to be sewing this to my ring And this could be super bulky with that Peltex and the multiple layers of fabric. I don't have a worry on the Vesta because the Vesta has a magic button. What is that? Well, that's this little button right here. And what this little button does, when it's the lowering and raising of the presser foot. But because it has that, it also has a feature called the automatic sensor system for sensing the thickness of the fabric. It's kind of a magic button because if I sew on something thick, it will automatically adjust the pressure on the foot. Now, the Baby Lock Vesta is also a machine without tension. What is that? Well, actually, it's called a posimetric lever. Don't make me pronounce it again. Let's just say there's magic features in there. And so what that also does is adjusts the tension of the machine. So even if I'm sewing through something super thick, I get perfect tension and it passes on through because it adjusts the pressure too. So I hope you agree that's a pretty magic button. So basically what I do is I take my 2.5 inch piece. Now the fabric needs to be several inches longer than my handle because what I'm going to do at the end is I cut off some pieces to go around that little ring. So you make it a little bit longer. This is not, but it tells you in your instructions how long you need to make that. So basically what I'm going to do, take one piece, fold it in half, press it, and then the other piece, the other 2.5 inch piece, can you see I'm pressing it down so that the raw edge is in the middle of that 1 inch piece of stabilizer. And I'm going to press this down. It's going to stay in place. I'm going to take the folded piece and lay it raw edges together. And I'm going to use some clips because this stuff's pretty thick and pins don't like it so much. Then I'm going to turn it over to sew on the other side, and I've marked a line so that you can see. But I'm using the 1/4 inch feature on the machine, so the machine will automatically give me that 1/4 inch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch from this edge of the interfacing, the 1 inch strip. And well, then you'll see we're going to fold it over and it gets pretty magic. But I want to make sure that everything stays the same. I'm using the Ultra T foot because I'm going through a whole bunch of thickness and I don't want the friction. So I'm going to start right here off of the edge, lower my presser foot using my magic button, and let's just sew. You might want to consider a fairly sharp needle for this because you are going through multiple layers, and I'm just using a regular sewing thread. So in this case it does happen to match the fabric because you're going to see my top stitching in a little bit. I sewed some before you came. Okay, now for the magic. Now what we're going to do, you can see that that part's sewn on there, this part is sewn this way. It's a fusible on both sides, this stabilizer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fabric piece, the single layer, wrap it around, and I'm going to go to my iron and I'm going to fuse that in place, and it is held. Then all I do is I take this piece, fold it over, and I top stitch on both sides. It's a really slick, fast handle, and I found that they are really super strong, and it's kind of decorative too. So this doesn't have to be a different color. It could be the same color. You're still going to get a super sturdy handle. And like I said, they're interchangeable when you use the hardware, so if you wear it out, super easy to make another. Okay, now I do that, I make my handles, I'm ready to go. Don't forget you're going to cut off a piece on the end to use as the tab to hold this onto the tote bag. But what we really need to do is we really need to do a couple fun things. I'm going to do some embroidery on my bag. I have a saying that I wanted to put on there, and we're going to make that Swiss cheese pocket on the other side. So let me clear this kind of away. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the machine for embroidery by taking off the accessory box, sliding on the embroidery arm, changing the foot, getting some thread. I'll see you in just a few minutes. So I changed the machine over. Now, if you're new to embroidery on the Vesta or any other embroidery machine, I have a video showing embroidery basics where I take and I change the machine from sewing to embroidery. So if you're new, that video's out there for you to check it out. But basically, everything switched over. And I want to show you a couple things on the screen, and we're going to get to putting a word on the front of our bag. I thought I would put happiness is contagious, because the word contagious, I think it needs to be associated with something fun and positive now. I hope you agree. So let's go to the screen and let me show you a couple little things before we put that in there. So here's the screen of the Baby Lock Vesta, and I want to show you something. This is a wireless machine, and the wireless symbol down here has an exclamation mark right next to it. That's telling me that there's an update available for this machine, so I need to go on the internet, download that to a USB drive, and update my machine. It's okay for now, but it's reminding me I need to do that. But let's go to the settings pages, because what I'd like to do, the settings pages is this button with this little piece of paper. I'd like to show you where that automatic fabric sensor system is. Now, if your machine is new, it comes with that feature turned off. I don't know why, but it does. So you can go through all the settings pages, and it's just going to loop around. On this machine, I believe it's on page number 3. There it is. There's the automatic fabric sensor system, and by touching this, I turn it on. Now that means that the machine is automatically going to sense if I'm sewing on thicknesses of fabric, and it's going to adjust the tension for those thicknesses too automatically. So don't forget to turn that on. I've actually never found a situation where I want it to be off, but so turn it on and enjoy the benefits. Okay, now I also want to show you a trick with lettering. So I'm going to bring in the lettering, and I wrote down contagious because, you know, there's no spell check on the machine. That's one thing I wish we did have. Let me go to this font right here. I used this font. Now I want these to be pretty big letters to show out on my screen, and let me show you what happens. So basically I'm going to pick a C, and it comes up automatically with that large font. So let's add the other letters. O, N. I'm going to do this to get to the T. T. I'm going to go back to get to the A. G. Uh-oh, well, the machine knows that I can't go across my 6.5-inch width of the machine. It's going to have to turn it automatically if I tell it to, just like that, and it's turned the word sideways so I can stitch it. So let's continue on. I, O, U, and I need my S. Oops. Well, it says that this pattern is way too long for the 10.25 inches of my hoop, but I know a trick. So let me go OK. Now I'm going to change this to a medium size font. That automatically makes it smaller. And then I'm going to add my S. But the one thing that's the trick that you need to know, well, let me make sure I spelled everything. Oh, good, because I don't have spell check. So when I hit set, what it's going to do, it's going to take that word and put it, remember it turned it sideways, and I changed it to a medium. But I really want it to be big. So the trick is, fonts are treated pretty much differently than most of the other embroideries in the machine. When I hit size, what I can do is I can make it bigger, and I can fit the screen when I couldn't using that large size. So let's take it and make it a little bit bigger. Then we'll definitely make it a little bit longer. Oops. Okay, here we go. That's the one I want. That's the one I want. Remember, when it turns it sideways, it's a little bit different. Now, I think that's going to fit on my, little stripe that I have here. So let's see. Maybe I need to make it a little bit smaller. I think that's going to work. So see, I could take it and make it big like I wanted it to, even though the machine didn't want to let me do it at first. Okay. Now, I have it right here, and I need to place it in my little stripe. So when I go Edit End, I come to where I can place the embroidery on the fabric within the hoop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose this little box right down here, and that takes and it puts the needle of the machine to the different corners of the design. So what I'm going to do is if I touch this, the machine's going to go to this upper right hand corner, and I can check it out and see exactly where it is on my fabric. So having done that, I know I probably need to move it a little bit to the right. So when I touch this, it's going to move that design a little bit to the right. And I can see where the needle is falling to see where if that's good. Now if I come back here, I can literally go to the other corner and I can check out to see if I've hit the middle of my stripe. I can actually come down here and it's going to go way to the bottom and it's going to show me if I've put my design in straight. So the Baby Lock Vesta has all kinds of different features so that you can go to all the different parts of your design to make sure. And if I touch this, the machine will literally trace around the entire design and I can see that I have placed my design exactly in the middle of that stripe. So I'm going to put it back in the middle. I don't have to, but I did. I'm going to say OK. Now, when I go to embroidery, I know that my design is perfectly placed. It's going to say it wants to stitch it in black, but we know I'm going to pick a pretty color. So I've loaded up my machine with a gold thread. And all I have to do is push the go button to make sure that this is going to stitch out. So my machine's ready to go. I'm going to touch the green button. It's going to embroider the word contagious. And when we come back, we're going to do a Swiss cheese pocket. Really, you don't need ham for it. It's just a hole. I'll be right back. So this turned out pretty good. I like my sentiment and I really like the embroidery. I think it really makes a great statement. So now let's do that fun pocket. So I'm going to take this out of the hoop. Now for the pocket, I am going to use the 5x7 magnetic frame. It doesn't come with the Vesta, but it's a super accessory. So I'm going to be using that, and I've already put the bottom of it on the machine. Now, let's place our pocket. So here is my big piece. Now, this is a big tote bag, right? You don't have to make it this big. There's tons of tote bag patterns out there, and you can use this technique on any of them. I just thought, if I'm going to go big, I want a big enough tote bag that I can carry a few things. So this is the 16 by 16 front pocket facing that I talked to you about. And what this is not really going to be seen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it on the front of my bag, because remember, one side's the other front. One's the back and one's the front. And we're going to put it on there, and notice it doesn't go out to the edge. I'm good with that. Now this pocket can be any size, so you can make this just about whatever size you want, but I wanted a pretty big one. So I put it on there, and I have put a small little dot where I think I want the center of my pocket to be. We're going to go to the machine and make a circle embroidery to fit in there, and that's going to be the opening that we're going to have for our pocket. Now, one thing that's cool about this magnetic hoop is I don't have to fiddle with it to get it all hooped up. It's really super easy with the magnetic hoop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it on where I think I want it to go. Now I can put it, it's going to be a circle, and I'm going to show you that you can use other shapes as well, but I'm going to put it on the machine where it's going to be super easy. We'll place it in just a minute, but let's go to the screen of the machine now, and I want to show you how I bring up that circle. So here we are, we finished embroidery. Okay, I don't need contagious anymore, so I am going to go home to my embroidery screen, and I'm going to go to a place that we probably haven't visited too much, and it's called the frames. So by touching that, the first thing that comes up is I have a whole bunch of different options of shapes that I can make. Now, any of these will work. Now, the heart, I want to share with you that little dip coming down is going to want to flop around a little bit when it comes to a pocket. You can use it, but you might want to use a little bit extra stabilizer if you choose that one. So I'm really just going to choose the circle. Now, once you choose any of the shapes, you have choices of different embroideries that can go around there. So There's flowers, there's all kinds of pretty little decorative stitches. I want this one, which is just your basic straight stitch. And when I hit set, I have a circle with that straight stitch. Now, 2.5 inches is not big enough for my pocket. I need a pocket, let's see, how big do I need to get my hand in there? Maybe at least 4.5 inches. So when I go to size, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this pocket bigger, and you can see the size right up there. Oh, I think I hit it right out of the box. That's going to make a circle that big. When I say OK, it's going to make that circle in embroidery. Edit end, and we know we can place it in our hoop using the keys that we already have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and put it approximately in this magnetic hoop so that it's right in the middle. That's the beauty of the magnetic hoop. You can kind of place it while it's on the machine. So here I am at the machine, and I'm going to take and I'm going to put that circle that I made right in the center of my magnetic hoop. And I'm just going to take the parts of the magnetic hoop and I'm going to lay them down, and it's going to hold that right into place. So it's going to make it super easy to embroider. I mean to hoop, to get ready to embroider. The magnets just fit around. Oops, I think I put this one on the wrong spot. Well, it's easy to fix. There we go. There's that one. Yep, I did. There we go. And they just really snap into place. And notice I'm not struggling getting this hooped on there. Okay, so I know that I'm pretty much right in the center with my circle, and it doesn't really matter that much on this project, but if I need to move it, I can use the keys and I can move it around just to make sure that it's right in that center. I'm good to go. All right, when I go to embroidery, what's going to happen is the machine's going to stitch that circle for me, and I'm going to get a perfect one. So I'm going to hit green means go, and we're just going to stitch our perfect about 4.5 inch circle. Perfect. That took no time at all. So I can pop it out, take off my magnets, and I have a circle stitched on the front of my bag. There you go. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut around here, and I'm going to pull this facing to the other side. I'm also going to clip up into the right close to the stitching, not through it, real close, and I'm going to turn this to the other side, and I'll have a perfect circle. So I want to go to the ironing board also after I cut that, and I'm going to pull everything through, and I'm going to make sure everything is stitched, pulled, so like I have a razor edge around there. I have a little bit of cutting pressing to do, so I'll be right back, and then we'll see how we can finish up this pretty faced pocket. We're going to make some Swiss cheese. So I took my facing to the back, and I pressed it really, really well. Now, this facing is going to come directly to the back, and this whole area is going to be my pocket, right? So it doesn't have to be that big. I just wanted a big, generous pocket on the front of my tote bag. Now, here's the part where it gets super creative. So I'm going to take this, and how the pocket works is you lay this right on top of the other, and on top of the other, and you just sew around this outside edge, right? And that makes the giant pocket. Like I said, it can be any size. But let's look at the creative possibilities. So that's what that would look like. But remember that piece I made at the very beginning with the stripes? What if I made a pocket piece that went on the back that had those fun stripes in it? Isn't that kind of cute? What if I didn't want anything that exotic? I did some plain fabric, and I could put some plain fabric behind it, and that would look kind of cute too. Don't stop there. What if you had some fabric with a really cool motif on it? So I could put a really cool motif and just make sure that it showed out in that window. This is an embroidery machine. Don't forget, we have embroidery on the one side. Let's put some embroidery on the other side. Here's a gift bag that I made. And look how fun this design would be. Look how fun that design would be on the inside of that pocket. So the creative possibilities are pretty much endless. Now, this happens to be the little window like this, and I made it in a circle. I didn't have to make it in a circle. I could have done the square, I could have made it into a diamond, an oval, I could have done that heart shape, and I made it a pocket opening. But what if I took maybe a piece of plastic, laid it behind here, stitched that down, and behind it I put some sort of a memorabilia. I put a picture, something like that, and it could be really fun. Do I need to stick with one hole? No, it's a Swiss cheese tote. So I could do different smaller holes all over the place, and I could even put that plastic behind them. It'd be really cute. Now, one thing you have to remember is, for each individual hole that you're going to make a separate facing piece. And I talk about that in the instructions. So now, to finish up my tote bag, like I said, it's in your handout, really simple. What's going to happen is I'm going to take this piece, we get rid of all my paraphernalia. I'm going to take this piece, or whatever piece I decide to use, lay it like this, and now I'm going to lift this edge up, and I'm just going to go sew around here. I don't have to finish the edge or anything, because it's going to be inside the bag, and no one's ever going to see it. So after I do that, I'm going to take my Pellon double-sided fusible. This is going to go and be fused all to the back of the bag. And then, pretend I did that. You're going to take your bag with the Pellon on the back, fold it on up, sew the sides, box the corners, show you in the handout, and then I'm going to take my cool little handle that I made, put these tabs right along the front, and they're going to be caught when I sew my lining. Now, my lining is the exact same size as the outside of my bag. I just sew my seams a little tiny bit, just about 1/8 of an inch bigger, so that it fits easily inside. And my lining for this tote is kind of plain. But isn't a tote more useful when you have lots of pockets? Lots of specialty pockets for your phone, your notepad, your glasses, your every essential that you're going to have to carry. I think maybe I need to make my inside lining not so plain after all. And that sounds like another video. What should we call it? Pocket pizzazz. I think we need to come up with a bunch of fun pockets for the inside of my lining. And me and the Vesta, well, I think we're going to be able to do it. So look out for that. You can either put plain lining on the inside, or you can make it fancier. So the Vesta, great machine, auto tension, automatic fabric sensor, and even if I'm sewing through the thickest stuff, she can handle all of it. So I'm going to shoot it over to George. He's going to tell you a little bit more about the Vesta. And if you want to put pockets in, maybe you need to watch me again. I think we're going to call it, well, that's right, Pocket Pizzazz. Take it away, George.
Thanks, Cathy. Once again, that was a great presentation. Don't forget to click on the link to download Cathy's guide on that incredible project. Now, every once in a while, a machine's introduced to the industry that really offers high performance at a great value, and that's the Baby Lock Vesta. Not only is it a great sewing and quilting machine, but it also is an incredible embroidery machine. The embroidery features include a hoop that's larger than 10 by 6, and it has a wonderful color touchscreen. And look at this beautiful embroidery. Plus, it removes the jump stitches, and it even has a special software program that sends your design via Wi-Fi right to the machine. Now, that's not all though. For a sewing machine, it has the automatic fabric sensor that senses fabric from heavy denim to sheer fabric to working with elastic or even a ribbing on a collar like a t-shirt knit. But quilting features, it actually will sew in different directions. We have some designs that are incredible for going down the sashing border. It has an automatic 1/4 inch so you can do your piecing, plus all kinds of wonderful decorative stitches. So as you see, this is an incredible sewing, quilting, and embroidery machine. Now, we have a very special buy on this machine. This machine has a manufacturer suggested list price of $59.99. But right now, it's on sale for $39.99. And we're including free shipping across the country, as well as interest-free financing is available. I want to make a very special offer for those who are watching Sewing Tech Talk with Cathy, and that is with a mystery bonus. Why is it a mystery bonus? Well, I don't have a lot of them, but I want to make sure those who are contacting me, all you have to do is mention Cathy, our Sewing Tech Talk with Cathy, and I have this bonus value that is incredible. So give us a call at 1-800-865-9664 and discover how easy it is to get an incredible sewing, quilting, and embroidery machine. Bye for now.